Fuck you!
What's up guys and girls, I'm the AuzzieGamer and welcome to my first review of 2012. The Darkness 2 hit shelves on February 9th and once again places players in the shoes of comic book anti-hero Jackie Estacado and the demon that lives within him. Is this sequel worth looking into, or does it merely fade into the darkness? Let's find out.
Let's go crack some skulls.
Let me start by saying that for those of you out there that haven't played the first installment, don't worry, as The Darkness 2 provides players with the option of viewing a quick summary of the events of the first game to get you up to speed. As I myself hadn't played the original, I found this feature to be a great help. Since the events of the first game, Jackie Estacado has become the leader of a massive family of organised crime, but is still mourning the loss of his girlfriend Jenny years on from her death. He had managed to find a way to bury the darkness and keep it under control, but when an attempt is made on his life, he is forced to call upon it once again in order to survive the attack and find out the truth behind the hit. Jackie's quest for truth soon transitions from interrogating enemy mobsters to becoming involved in cultist conspiracy, placing a focus on his ongoing battle with the demon that inhabits his body, as well as his struggle to prevent the darkness from falling into the wrong hands. Throughout the game, Jackie will repeatedly find himself waking up as a patient in a mental hospital, in which all of the key people that he interacts with are present as either staff members or fellow patients. This begins to make the events of the game appear to be figments of Jackie's imagination, and you begin to wonder yourself, along with Jackie, if anything that's taking place is actually taking place, as the line between what is and isn't reality begins to become unclear.
Sometimes I can't tell the difference between a fruit and a vegetable.
Put simply, the overarching plot of The Darkness 2 was told rather well, and is definitely interesting enough to keep you playing from beginning to end. As Jackie Estacado, you'll slay your way through a series of relatively linear missions brimming with enemies to brutally murder. The enemies you'll face are actually quite varied, beginning with your run-of-the-mill one-hit kill cannon fodder types, then advancing to armoured enemies, enemies with whips to disarm you, enemies with shields, and the list goes on. The constant variety of enemies will force you to make on-the-spot strategy changes in order to survive. This of course adds to the challenge and helps keep things fresh. Boss fights are also scattered throughout the game and help to break things up, but with the exception of a few, they lack any real challenge and can often be overcome with a single attempt. Jackie's demonic powers are without a doubt the focal point of the game. The demon arms hovering over his left and right shoulders can be used to interact with objects in the environment such as doors or fuse boxes, and can also be used to hurl objects at hapless enemies or just tear them limb from limb. As Jackie slays his way through the game, he accumulates essence which can be used to purchase and upgrade his demonic abilities. Some abilities such as performing brutal executions to replenish health or ammo, the black hole which obliterates enemies in its proximity, as well as a few others are easily the most exciting of the bunch. Many others however aren't all that appealing and will likely only be chosen once the list of awesome abilities has been exhausted. The demonic executions themselves are brutal, satisfying, and just plain fucking awesome, and really make you feel like the demonic god that you are.
I'm down.
Jesus Christ, Jackie!
As well as his demonic powers, Jackie also has a large arsenal of weapons at his disposal, which includes handguns, assault rifles, and shotguns, just to name a few. Many of the weapons can also be dual-wielded, making things even more fun and making Jackie even more of a nightmare to his foes. Jackie may be godlike, but he's certainly not invincible, so don't become too relaxed, as the game tends to jump between relatively simple to ludicrously challenging without warning, often skipping the middle ground. Jackie's darkness powers don't work in the light, and it appears that his eyes have a hard time as well. Therefore, you'll find that shooting out light sources and destroying power generators becomes a regular hobby. Enemies will also begin to use flashbangs, car headlights, and spotlights to gain the edge in a gunfight. And while I welcomed the challenge most of the time, seeing as though in some areas the game ambushes you with what feels like hundreds of enemies at once, soon desperately sprinting around looking for a hiding place whilst being almost completely blinded by lights and all the while being shot at by everything with a pulse becomes frustratingly difficult. As a whole, the game seems to peak at around the halfway point, offering little more from that point onwards. There were a couple of instances where you took control of the Darkling, Jackie's companion, which offered a more stealthy approach for a short while. These were interesting but didn't occur anywhere near enough to make them a noteworthy feature. With not much more to offer, the gameplay begins to feel repetitive towards the end of the game, and even the aforementioned executions become tedious as you watch them over and over again. With this in mind, the game's relatively short campaign of about 5 to 6 hours seems appropriate, and you'll likely be left satisfied. As well as the main story, there's also a Vendettas mode which holds a brief campaign that serves as a side story to the main campaign. Players can choose one of 4 characters, each with their own unique darkness abilities. You can either play solo or with up to 3 other players online. The cooperative campaign is certainly fun while it lasts, but with many elements and locations borrowed from the main story and an overall length of just over an hour, it's immediately forgettable. The visuals in The Darkness 2 are great. Cell shading has been used to pay homage to the game's comic book roots, and it complements nearly every aspect of the game. Character modelling and animation is relatively crisp, the environments are both diverse and well detailed, and the attention to detail on both the weapons and Jackie's demonic arms is fantastic. The only issue that I could spot was some small amounts of texture pop-in, a minor complaint that can easily be overlooked when the game presented truly chaotic gunfights with plethoras of enemies without so much as a hiccup in frame rate. The Darkness 2 is a very gory game, and the levels of gore are greatly accentuated by the game's visuals and audio, with gallons of blood coating the environment as you brutally slay your foes and the sounds of blood splatter and severed limbs littering the ground, making you feel like the killing machine that you are. Not to mention that the weapons actually sound like they're doing damage, and the soundtrack complements each moment of the game appropriately. The voice acting is also pretty solid for the most part, if you can excuse the stereotypical mafia accents.
It was Eddie Word. I was otherwise engaged at the time.
He was busy snorting coke off a hooker's ass.
Never could multitask.
The Darkness 2 is a satisfyingly gory, fast-paced action first-person shooter complete with a decent narrative and a fantastic presentation. However, despite having some equally impressive gameplay, what lets it down is its progressively repetitive campaign and forgettable cooperative feature. Don't get me wrong, there is definitely a ton of fun to be had in The Darkness 2, but with the price of admission at $100, I'd be more inclined to give it a rental first.